here on a rainy day at Zoo Atlanta, ready to kick things off with their African Savannah. As far as I know, the original Savannah, or at the time African Plains or Masai Mara, opened back in 1998, and the layout looked a little bit like this. Then, in August of 2019, the zoo opened the newly, highly anticipated African Savannah, aka Phase 1 in the zoo's $50 million attempt to modernize the park. The Savannah includes a modern approach, while utilizing a few other exhibits that are still adequate. So, let's begin. Immediately after entering the zoo, and actually on your way from the parking garage to the gates, you can get a very good hint of what's to come. Right past the flamingo exhibit, adjacent to the entrance, is the portal to the Savannah. But first, you can view into the first exhibit. Before the renovations, this exhibit was home to the zoo's elephants, and referring back to an older map, you can see that the rhinos were actually housed in about the same area as the current elephant enclosure. At the time, the Rhinoceros exhibit actually backed up to another exhibit displaying giraffes, zebras, and a few other animals, creating somewhat of an illusion that they were all in together. At the moment, the zoo houses the first ever southern white rhinoceros to live in Zoo Atlanta. Mumbles is a 9-year-old male originally from the Houston Zoo. He's here because of a recommendation by the AZA for the white rhino species survival plan. His space continues into another smaller holding yard and finally into an indoor stall that you can view into. Yet again, this was all at one point meant for elephants. Then, directly across from the rhinos, though it's not actually part of the savannah, I figured it wouldn't be fair not to include an honorable mention to these 4 smaller aviaries containing multiple species of smaller birds that I can't name, along with a ground hornbill and lapid-faced vultures, aka nature's garbage man. And fun fact of the day, vultures can use a process known as urohydrosis, where they'll actually urinate on their legs to keep cool, and the high amounts of acid in that urine kills parasites on the vultures. After that, we'll have to actually do a bit of backtracking to the entrance and yet again another view of the rhinos, but after that, straight ahead is another exhibit, possibly the most prominent part of this savannah. But first, let's talk about its past. Like I mentioned earlier, part of this space was once the old rhino exhibit, though I do believe part of it was unused at the time. The current exhibit is more than triple the size of their former one. The new exhibit includes multiple waterfalls, an enrichment wall, grassy terrain, and what's known as the Abana Pond, the largest of free water features that includes a 360-degree access and a slope to the pool. I was told by the staff that this exhibit can hold up to 6 elephants, and their space continues from this viewing shelter all the way down to an indoor section known as the Zambezi Elephant Center. But first, the smaller side of things. The zoo's mob of meerkats. Their exhibit intercepts your view of the elephants that continue behind. Their habitat is actually split into 2, with an indoor section as the divider. I do know that before the renovations they were housed near the rhinos, but other than that, not much about their past at the zoo. Meerkats are omnivores who mainly live in southern Africa, many times in desert environments. Ironically, meerkats don't intake as much water because most of their hydration comes from insects and grub they eat. Moving on from there and back to the elephants, you're provided with another view of the yard before proceeding into the Zambezi Elephant Center. The center provides a view from 2 glass panels into multiple elephant stalls and many educational displays. The zoo is home to 3 elephants, the oldest being Tara, a female who was born back in 1982, making her 38 years old. She's a little shorter and quote-unquote rounder than the other elephants, with her Kelly is born in 1983, who is 38, and she is distinguishable because of her little hair on the tip of her tail, and she is socially dominant over Tara. Finally, the newest of the bunch, Misolo, who is 30 years old. He was rescued from Swaziland and then sent to Zoo Tampa, where from there he went to the San Diego Safari Park, and finally he made his way to Zoo Atlanta. At the time, he is the only male on display here, and the zoo says they do not plan on breeding him with any of the older ladies in the future. Yet again, after backtracking a good ways past the elephants, you can get one final peek into the rhino's yard. But then, following that, a smaller path which splits off from the main walkway that will eventually lead you to the zoo's lion exhibit. History shows not much has changed here. There's a glass viewing, and continuing right, another viewing area. At its center, a copy, which is accessible to the lions, and on this day was used to hide from the weather. The zoo is currently home to 3 brothers, all born in 2013. Hondo, Harati, and Azizi, all of which living in a group of male lions known as a coalition. From there, we're back on the main path, and just beyond the lions are 2 elevated views of the elephant exhibit. continued by a large yard housing giraffes, along with zebras, and ostriches who didn't show. Like I mentioned before, their previous exhibit took up a fair amount of this space, and though I don't know the exact size of the upgrade, I do know the habitat was flattened, and there definitely was an increase in overall size. Also, right in front of the main viewing area, a feeding station known as the Tigua Terrace, where you can feed the zoo's, I believe, 3 giraffes, Abu, Antana, and Izoba. Directly behind where you stand, something you may have bypassed on your way up. A smaller enclosure where apparently tortoises used to be, this space is now for the lesser-known Cory bustard, arguably the largest flying bird on the continent. They are omnivores. Once breeding, the female lays her eggs in a shallow hole in the ground, and the males take no part in raising their young. And finally, right of that and the giraffes where bongo antelope used to be are the zoo's warthogs, who used to be housed near the original rhino exhibit. Sadly, they didn't show. The African savannah has truly come a long way and successfully cares for its inhabitants. Next time we're back at Zoo Atlanta, we'll continue down the zoo's main path to the African rainforest. Thank you for watching.